At some point during your art career, there's a good chance you have asked, how do I draw a head? Personally, for the 100th time, I'm going to ask that question again today. And to get my answer, I'm going to dive deeper into learning Frank Reilly's head drawing method. Hey, it's Leighann. I'm a self-taught artist trying to learn and study more about art this year, and I'm bringing you all along the way. So let's get down to it. What is the Reilly method? I talked a bit about Frank Reilly in my head drawing methods video, which I will link for the curious, but I'll also do a quick recap here. Frank J. Reilly was born in 1906, and 21 years later, he started studying at the Art Students League of New York, a school known for being free from a set curriculum and for not having any restrictive grading systems. There, he took an admissions test so that he could join George Bridgerman's drawing class, who I know by his chunky anatomy. And Reilly also studied painting under the influential painter Frank Vincent Dumont. After the Art Students League, he went on to become a painter, muralist, illustrator, and most notably, a teacher. In 1933, Reilly began lecturing at the Art Students League, where apparently he was one popular teacher. It's said that he had students crowded from wall to wall. Later, he taught illustration at Moore College of Art and Design and Pratt Institute. He taught drawing and painting at Grand Central School of Art and mural painting at the National Academy of Design. And now for the method itself. Reilly never wrote his process down, so the notes we do have are from his students. This means that there are many versions and takes on how to create the Reilly Head Abstraction. But what exactly is it? Reilly's Head Abstraction breaks down the anatomy into groups of rhythmic planes, mapping out the major elements of the face. It shouldn't be used as an exact formula, but it's great for finding face proportions and the rhythmic lines in your subject. Mostly though, it helps in simplifying the complexity of the head. It's a great way to study head anatomy or to check your drawings for proportional errors. Alright, now let's get into the steps for creating Reilly's Head Abstraction. You don't have to do the steps in this exact order, but it might be helpful if this is your first time. You're going to start by drawing a circle with a vertical and horizontal line down the middle. You don't have to be exact with this, I'm just using a ruler to make it easier for you all to see. Now I'm going to slice the sides off with a vertical line at about the 1/8 mark on each side of the circle. These lines will represent the edge of the face, and the circle will extend beyond that, as you can see here. For step 3, we will add a horizontal line on the top and on the bottom connecting those lines we made in step 2. Which will create a square inside of our circle. The top line represents the hairline and the bottom line represents the bottom of the nose. The face is divided into thirds vertically. The first section will be from the hairline to the brow line. The second section is from the brow line to the bottom of the nose, and the third section is from the nose to the chin. Here's what that looks like with a finished face. You of course don't have to draw out these 1/3 marks, I'm just adding them here for your reference. Moving on to step 4, we're going to add the jaw. Starting at that middle brow line, you're going to draw a line down, ending at that bottom 1/3. This will give the chin its shape, which is dependent on each person's face. Now I'm going to divide that middle third from the brow line to the bottom of the nose into thirds again. I'm going to add a line going across, which will represent the bottom of the eyes. And now for the fun part, adding the nose. But first it's important to note that the head is separated into fifths horizontally. The first fifth is the side of the face, and then we have the first eye, then we have the nose, the second eye, and the other side of the face. So in that middle third, we're going to add 2 vertical lines to mark the width of the nose. A small way up from our nose line, you're going to add a curved line to represent the tip of the nose. Between the tip and the width of the nose, you're going to add another curved line on both sides, which will be the nostril flare. Then draw a line that arches underneath the nose line to connect the 2 nostrils. Then you will draw the ridge of the nose. This starts at the tip and goes up to the brow line, curving in slightly at the bottom eye line. Then draw a curved line from the bottom eye line down to the corner of the nostrils. Here's that process again of how to draw the nose. Don't forget that everyone's nose is going to be a little different, so if you're using a reference, you may need to adjust accordingly. Next, I'm going to divide my bottom third between the nose line and the chin line into thirds again. At this point, I do recommend drawing the mouth line, but I don't do that until step 16. For step 13, we're going to connect these 2 lines with a sort of oval shape. This is the inner muzzle, which shows you where the teeth and the laugh lines go. Next is the outer muzzle, which is a semicircle starting at the bottom of the eyes line going down to the jaw. Now we will create the main part of the chin, which is an oval starting at the very bottom of the face and extending it just a little bit beyond the bottom of that inner muzzle line. Here's another look at all those lines we just made. We have the inner muzzle, outer muzzle, and then chin. The mouth is drawn on the first 1/3 line under the nose line. The corners usually match up with about the center of the eyes, but it's going to depend on the person. Next, we're going to work on these 3 lines, which will help us with the cheeks. This first line establishes the top part of the cheekbone. The line starts from the brow line and curves down to the intersection of your outer muzzle and the very first circle we drew. To form the bottom of the cheekbones, we're going to take a line from the corner of the mouth to the edge of the head at the bottom of the eye line. Now this next one's a little more tricky. It's going to start at the corner of the mouth, curve beside the nostrils, and then go up to that same intersection of the side of the head and the brow line. Alright, and for step 20, we're going to create the temple line. This is going to start at the corner of our hairline, and then move down to the intersection of the bottom of the eye line and that tricky curved line that we just made. And then here I'm just rounding off the sides of my head a little bit. Okay, I promise we're almost done, but first we got to add in some lines for our eyes. At this intersection we have created, we're going to start drawing the eye arch. The height of this is going to be dependent on the person's eye size. And as you can now see, we have created the outer corner of the eye. And now we're going to define the inner corner by creating a curved line that starts at the nose width line that we originally made. Next, we're going to create a line that shows where the forehead muscle goes. It starts at the temple and brow line intersection, curves up about 1/4 of the way to the hairline, and then goes back down. From 1/3 of the way between our brow line and our nose line, we're going to start creating an oval that goes up to the hairline. Congrats, you have finished the main components of the Reilly Head Abstraction. The rest of the things we're going to do are either details or just optional things that you can add. Here I'm just adding in the shape of the mouth, and though I don't do it here, you can go ahead and start adding some of those details in the eyes. You can also make a circle around the eyes to show where the eye socket goes. And then for ears, they come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes, but generally they will start around the brow line and end around the nose line. So let's recap some of these important measurements that we have talked about. The head is divided into thirds vertically, starting with the hairline, then the brow line, then the nose line, and then the bottom of the chin. The head is divided into fifths horizontally. Within your vertical divisions, you can also separate them into even more divisions. I find that it's helpful to divide the bottom and middle sections into thirds again, and then to divide the top and the middle section into fourths. And you can also divide the width of the circle into eighths horizontally. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, Leighann, what about the fact that heads turn and don't stay looking straight on? No worries, the Reilly method works on any angle. And I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to look at how the abstraction changes when the angle of the head changes. Starting with one of the most popular head angles that artists use, the 3/4 view. When working with angles, a lot of your lines are going to be more curved than they were before. So this first line we make is not down the middle of the circle anymore, it runs down the middle of the face. So you'll need to place it at whatever angle that needs to be. The next change is that you will not be making a straight line to slice the sides of the circle off. Instead, you will use an oval. Everything inside of this oval is the side of the head. Now remember, as you're making these horizontal lines, that you're working with a 3D sphere, and they might need to be slightly curved. The shape of the jaw changes too. Generally, it will look something like this, but of course it will depend on the face you're drawing. The lines for the width of the nose are about the same, but finding the tip of the nose is going to be a lot trickier. You'll have to place it off-center from the nose width lines you just made. And then it's also important to note the nostril lines here. The one that's furthest away from us curves past the nose width line and then back in. You'll also start to notice here that all the lines that are further away from us are condensed down a little bit. But it's not as tricky as it seems. You're just going to be connecting the lines to the same spots we did with the front view. A lot of the changes that have to be made here are just going to take practice. So if you're having a hard time with this, I recommend working off of a reference photo until you get the hang of it. Okay, moving on, let's test out another angle. This one is the profile view. Like with the front view, we're going to add both a horizontal and vertical line down the middle of the circle. If your head is at an angle like mine is, then you'll need to make them slightly diagonal. And the first change you're going to notice is that instead of chopping off the sides of the circle, we're adding another circle inside to represent the side of the head. Then you'll just add your normal horizontal lines to mark the thirds of the face. Okay, now we're going to draw a line down the front of the face starting at the brow line. The ear is going to be placed along the back half of the vertical line. The jaw is going to extend down and over from the bottom of the ear. And then one thing that a lot of people miss here is that extra part below the jaw. Now I'm going to divide the bottom third section into thirds again. Also, the blue line represents the halfway point, which is actually where the bottom of the lip goes. Now I'm just roughly sketching out the nose and adding a line for the mouth, and then I'm going to add those main abstraction lines that we added with the other views. These don't change that much, you just want to remember what points you're connecting to each other. So go ahead and add in your muzzle lines, the circle for your chin, and then all the lines on your cheeks. Okay, now let's get into how the nose changes. You're not going to see much of that top plane on the ridge of the nose. You should probably draw it even more narrow than what I did here. But as you can see, the other lines around the nose are going to hit at the same marks. Like the width of the nose is still going to be from the outside corner of the nostril to the inner corner of the eye. Now we're going to add in some of those lines around the eyes. We have the one to represent the top of the eyes, and then we also have one to represent that forehead muscle. I also added a line for the front of the eye as well as the bottom eyelid. Alright, and that about covers all the main features. I did forget to add the oval on the forehead, but you can go ahead and do that now. So here's some measurements you might want to take note of. First of all, the outer corner of the eye is actually going to line up where the front part of the neck starts. The line that goes from the nose to the bottom of the ear is also going to be where your cranium ends and the back of the neck begins. And lastly, don't forget about the placement of your ears. The top lines up with your brow line and the bottom lines up with your nose line. Now let's talk about 3 different ways that you can use the Reilly Head Abstraction. The first way you can use it is as a starting point for your drawings, like I'm doing here by turning my profile abstraction into a sketch. But don't forget, if you're not using a reference photo, you'll need to add some changes and variety to your features so that they don't all end up too perfect. Without any variety in the features, you'll just be drawing the exact same face over and over again. The second way you can use it is to fix your rough sketches. Just create your rough sketch, add the abstraction over top of it, decide what changes you may want to make, and then resketch over top of all of that for your final drawing. If you're not doing digital art, you can just use tracing paper for this. Here is a drawing I did without using the Reilly method. When I added the Reilly method on top of it, I realized that I wanted the mouth and the nose to be higher up and that I needed to fix the left eye. You can also apply the Reilly method onto your caricature drawings. This will help you decide what features you want to purposefully exaggerate versus which ones you want to have the correct proportions. The third way that you can use the Reilly method to help you is to just keep it as a reference close to your workstation. That way you can be more confident in creating a face that's more anatomically correct without going through the full process of creating the Reilly abstraction. Since it also outlines planes of the face, it can be helpful to use it as a reference for shading. If you specifically want to learn more about planes of the face in regards to shading, I suggest checking out the Asaro head. This was created by John Asaro, who was actually one of Frank Reilly's students. But instead of using circles for the planes of the face, Asaro uses panels. There are quite a few 3D models out there that you can check out that would be really helpful. This one that I'm looking at here actually has a light on it that you can move around to see where the shadows and highlights land. I'll link some options below. Alright, I hope this has been helpful to you. I've really enjoyed diving deeper into the Reilly method, and I can't wait to keep studying and putting it into practice. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Thanks for watching!